So what I'm going to do is I've made this like kind of example report that's a bit styled, just to show you one method of starting a template. So you can use an existing report or an existing template. In this case, I've actually used an Everbility filled in report from a sample client to kind of have a finished report to show a method of using a completed report to start a template. So first thing I'm going to do is copy everything, go over to Everbility, say add new template, start from scratch, and just paste everything into this blank template. I'm going to name it. So for species that are in the call and also anyone not working in the NDIS, like even though this is an FCA report and it's obviously an NDIS kind of focused thing, it doesn't matter in terms of setting up templates. This is very applicable to all kinds of report templates. Sorry, my voice is a bit crackly today. Okay, so that's how you, that's the best thing to do to start. The next thing you can do is any headers you had in your document should still be marked as headers when you open them in Everbility. So you can just check that by clicking, like it's okay that it's got this kind of different look. We're going to check that when we export. So at the end of the webinar, I'm also going to show you how to get formatting set up in your Word document to bring that back, because that's a common question we get with setting up templates, the best way to make sure that your formatting comes back easily after the fact. So that's also something to look out for. So we have just got the normal and 3 heading styles, which is pretty much most people only really worry about that anyways in their reports. If you kind of are an outlier and that doesn't suit you, then just reach out to us and, we can look at your situation and how to support that. The next thing to do is for key details like this, merge tags are best. So I'm just going to say add tag, and I'm going to put in a first name and a last name. And the way merge tags work is the very first time I write something for a client in Writer, Everbility goes and looks through the notes that are selected and tries to find those details. So here I'm asking it to find first name and last name. And so it will look through the notes and it will just fill them in itself. If it can't find it, it will leave it blank for you, or it will say, I don't have this information, and then you can update it. And then it will be remembered every time you use that client or write anything for that client in the future. So a merge tag should really be a detail about a client that doesn't change very regularly, and then it will be quite helpful for you. Anything that changes, like date of report, that's better used as a prompt. So I'll show you how to do that as well. But all of these would be good as merge tags. If you don't have a merge tag for something, you can just click create custom and give a logical name for that. So here I'm going to say I do have address already, but I'm also going to show a way to get the formatting done as well. So if you want your date written in a specific way, or your address, you want to make sure that it includes the postcode. You could say like unit or house number, street. Oh, hold on. Yep, street name, suburb, country, etc. So you can put in how you want that postcode. I might actually put it in brackets as well to just give it that kind of extra guidance. And so then once you've got that created as a custom, you still need to click on it to bring that in. So then what Everbility should do is if it has the address, it will go look for that to fill that in the same kind of formatting. I believe, do I have an example for date of birth? I do. So you can do something similar with dates. So if you'd like it to write out the whole month, you would just write like DD month, year, or Y, sorry. With something like this, where it's date of report, I would say fill this in using this structure. and
Mm.
write date of report, today's date, and make that, hold on. So if that happens for you, sometimes some documents have things set up as um, kind of without the proper paragraph spacing. So I just deleted the new lines and added in new lines that weren't kind of these faux paragraph new lines. They can be really helpful as well, which I'm going to get into when we kind of go through a soap note template shortly. So, but as you saw, like all of three of those things were in one instruction block together. So that can be really helpful if you want everything to be written together. So things like a progress note, an email, sometimes even like letters, which you know are not going to be too long. They are often good to group the instructions together because then it can write in a very cohesive way because it goes and looks for the information it needs for the whole thing and writes it all together. When it comes to reports, that approach just doesn't work due to the length and the detail we need in each section. So that's why it's better to break up the sections and write the instructions individually. Something like purpose of a report, where you're writing something very similar each time, you can use a prompt like fill this in using a very similar paragraph, just filling in the blanks based on the notes. And this is where having a finished report can be helpful because for things that you know you write very similarly each time, we can just take that and take away the client detail that is actually already there. So I'm going to say like client name, but some people's templates already have that kind of set up in that way. So you'll know for yourself what's going to work better. The process is for conducting a thorough assessment of client names, current functional abilities, needs, and aspirations in relation to um, any relevant relevant goals mentioned, something like that. Um, you can put it in angle brackets. It doesn't have to be in angle brackets. I just find that with AI, when prompting, giving some kind of like visual difference between the text that's kind of just the structure and the
Yeah.
guidance on how you want it to write and more on what you want
Is
to
it?
fill in. Um,
Oh,
oh,
hold
someone's
on. Are you at my house?
just muting that person. Um, so that can be a good way. You can use square brackets, curly braces. It doesn't really matter what you use. It just helps the AI kind of more focus on particular parts of the prompt. This assessment will serve as a guide for the development of client name, NDIS scheme, ensuring it aligns with her personal. And you can take out any pronouns that need changing in a prompt as well. You can actually write like all of the pronouns that would fit in that part of the paragraph as well, and it will just choose the correct one if it knows based on the note. Um, so you can do something like that. Personal goals and provide the necessary reports for in here independence, community participation over quality of life. Furthermore, this report will evaluate Control, the feasibility of this of transitioning Sarah to specialist assistant. Okay, so this is kind of a specific thing for a client. So you can either choose to just remove it from the purpose report, this paragraph here, or you can ask it to include another sentence on how like this report is going to support this individual's goals. So I'll do that. This is the first step to setting up a template. Obviously, the stuff I'm showing here. The next thing we're going to have to do is actually test this template. So these prompts I'm writing, we go and check if the prompts are actually going to work for us in all these cases. So let me put this in here, include one sentence. If you're not specific about how much you want it to include, it can go in very waffly, overly elaborate detail, which you don't want it to do in something that you want to be like short and succinct. Include one sentence on how this report or something like that. I mean, you'll know what you want to put in your reports. Something like assessments completed. To make this a prompt, you also need to make sure that when you are putting in your notes to Everbility, that you're very specific with the assessments. So sometimes this prompt doesn't always capture everything very well if you haven't put that information into the notes. So some people find it's easier just to write this one section themselves because the work that has been required to actually put the information into the notes is almost the same amount. I'll still show you how to do this. It's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at efficiency. Sometimes making AI do everything isn't always more efficient. So this is one of those cases where we've had that feedback before, that it's like you kind of need to put all the same information into the notes anyway. Some people already have it really well documented, and it's easy to copy and paste from their practice management systems. So that's up to you. I'm gonna also use dash space instead of a proper bullet point. Proper like dot point lists in Everbility templates don't like work as prompts, but then when you export from Everbility, when it's got the dash space, it converts back to a proper list in Word. So some of the things that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at how to prompt so that you have as minimal work required in your export process, this is one of those tips. So you can use the dash space. Also, so there's something called markdown formatting, which also converts back, which I'll show a couple of examples of that too. And we're also adding kind of markdown best tips to our guides page as well. So if that's available when we send the recording, I'll share that. But if it's later, I can still share that with anyone who wants to see that. But that's quite helpful as well. And these are all specific standardized assessments. So I'm not going to include them in my prompt because that's not going to always be relevant. So when we're prompting for templates, we want to think about kind of making a template that works for a majority of our clients. So here I'm going to say, fill this in using the following structure. And to keep it all in the same instruction block, I'm clicking Shift Enter instead of just Enter. So that will kind of create this new line, but it's not a true new paragraph. It's like a fake new paragraph. And that allows the instruction to all be held together in the one prompt. Assessments completed, initial assessment completed with, and instead of writing who, because that should really be in the notes, I'm going to say with ... on dates, day, month, year. I'm actually going to put the word date inside this angle bracket too. Cool. And then the next one, list standardized assessments completed. And if there's anything else that you kind of know that you sometimes do, you can also say, I'm going to actually add if relevant. So you can always put something and then say if relevant as well so that it knows to kind of look for that and then not do it. we've actually made a bunch of changes as well to Everbility and how it's following instructions. So um, something like that before, you might have found like it still tried to fill that in. Hopefully it's a lot better. We believe it is. But yes, definitely that should work really well. So you kind of go through section by section, doing this kind of work for sections that you know, like roughly what needs to be. You can just delete all of the content you had there and give it a logical instruction on filling that out. Um, I'll also show table prompting quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually delete all of the content from the table that I want to use. So the table's copied and pasted really nicely. I'm going to just turn this into a prompt. The way that I did that, sorry, I did that a bit fast. I just select one word within the table so that the toolbar shows up, and clicking the little purple Everbility logo makes that a prompt or not. The next thing to do is mark headers. So headers are not changed by Everbility. It just uses them to fill in the cells of the table. So I'll add a row header, and I'm going to add a column header because I don't want these to change. And then I actually can give further prompts and guidance within the cells of the table. So here I'm going to say, I only want it to choose from a very specific list of how I want it to describe level of independence, for example, or maybe I want it to use a full sentence to describe the level of independence. So it's up to you how you instruct that. But in this case, I'm going to write independent, maybe verbal prompting, supervision. Etc. if there's more. And aids used needed. It's kind of self-explanatory, so it's up to you if you want to include additional, like the best thing to do with prompts as well is usually to start with less. And I'll go like this is a lot more into the prompting best tips guides. But if you kind of want the basics is start with less and build upon is the best way to go about prompting, because when you start with something more basic, you kind of see the natural tendency of how it responds to you. And this is the case for all AI. Like you'll get a better sense of what the natural tendency of the AI is, and then you can add to constrain it further. So that's kind of how you should approach these models, all of these AI softwares, thinking about what you need to do to box it in to get it to behave the way that you need it to. If you go too constrictive from the beginning and you have a really complex prompt and it's super detailed, you'll end up finding like it's harder to figure out what to remove because it's not as clear. So it's better to start from something simple and build upon. So in this case, I'll leave this blank, and if it ends up doing something I don't want it to do, I can add more detail in. And here, you can write, provide details. Observations. Each task. And so these instructions are carried throughout the table. You don't need to put them in every single cell. If you have a cell where you want it to respond differently, so it kind of isn't fitting that rule, then you can also include instructions in those as well. Before I move on, because I also don't want to spend too much time on just this one template, but I want to go and show you like the testing process of this. Is there any questions so far? Please feel free to put them in the chat. Happy to answer those. I'll jump over to Writer, and if there's questions, I can show there as well. So Writer is our tool where you use these templates. And here I can select a client. So I'm going to select this sample client, and I'm just going to choose this initial assessment and a previous OT report. Just when you're selecting previous information, when you're actually using Everbility, for this demo, I'm selecting this so I make sure that there's actually details for all of the sections we've worked on. just be mindful that you need to be able to prompt Everbility with the information you have selected, and it has a tendency to think it's current. So if you want to select something that's previous, it's actually better to prompt it, giving it that information that I have selected something previous. So make sure that you differentiate the two. And the same goes if you're selecting another clinician's report. It's actually better to generate your report without that selected. And then wherever you need it, just generate those sections with that report and stating, like, I have selected the physiotherapist report. Please reference that appropriately with the clinician's name and date so that you know that it actually has done that correctly. Because otherwise, it just thinks it's all yours, and that's not, how you want that to behave. So, that's my advice around that. Which one did we just create? Because I called it FCA template. There you go. So I'm going to open it up here, select some information. So when you're creating a template, it's good to just go test it with a client you know really well, and go ahead and generate this and see what happens. In this case, I know it doesn't have the address for the example client, so I can actually just update this myself so that it remembers that for the future. So I'll give it 100 Becky Lane, Sydney, 2000. Oh, I didn't put country. Something like that. Update. And then that will then be used for all future times that's written. So that's done what I wanted it to do. It's written the word date of report again and filled in today's date. Did I give it a format for that date? No, I didn't. So I'll show you that as well, because it used a different format than I have elsewhere in my report. So if you want to make sure things like dates are consistent, then you'll notice you have the ability to choose those things in your prompts. So as I'm making changes to prompts here, because I'm in a testing process, it's not affecting my master template. So I'm only changing a copy of a template, which is great because you don't want to like completely damage your master if you end up doing things that you're not happy with. But once you are really happy, I'll also show you how to export the Everbility file so that you can kind of upload that and revert and get all your prompts back quite quickly. So that worked. Does say 2023 in the initial assessment notes, which is why it's pulled that date particularly in. And that's, written based on what's in this previous OT report. So that's as well, like it's obviously pulling that as current data, which is important to understand and differentiate. I haven't given it my name or the date that the initial assessment was completed. So, and it's interesting here, it's like said just the therapist name. So you might need to change that prompt as well so that it actually pulls out like the client and so you could just write like, client, therapist, and any other family in the prompt. But this is really important as well. And you'll notice this happens more now, very like recently when using Everbility. You're going to get a lot more of these like square brackets when it doesn't have the right information. So that's really good because you want to know that, okay, cool, that's actually what and how it should be behaving. Coming down to this table, we're able to quickly have a look at this as well and see if these templates, this prompt is working. The next thing I'm going to do is export this as a Word document. And let me open that up. And actually, before I go too much into Word formatting, I know we've only got about 15 minutes left. So I just want to see if anyone has any questions more around setting up the templates. Do you want me to go through a SOAP note template where everything's all in one block, or is that kind of self-explanatory based on how I showed how to do that block kind of creation in the report template? Please drop in if there's any questions or anything you'd like me to show that I haven't yet. and I can quickly kind of show how to get formatting back as well. We do have a video tutorial already available on setting up your Word formatting. So I'm going to go into like a very quick version of it. But basically you want to be able to take this exported document and get back this kind of formatting very quickly.
Can I ask a
So
quick question? Just sorry, based
yeah,
on something else. I just am a little bit unclear. You know how you mentioned, so maybe when you do your initial report, you've done all your you've done your template, then you download the info based on the most relevant. Then you want to go back and add a little bit of old info or a physio report or a bunch of other reports. How do you then go back and do that? Do you just re-click the relevant prompts, or how do you let it know that now we're using information that's not mine, for example? This is info from other people's reports.
it's a really good question. So I'll just select like a physio report here, for example. And what I can do is I can actually like go to a section. So I don't have a section that I've already generated. That's a good example. I'll just show it even with this, but you can either revert the entire section, so change it back to being the prompt and change the prompt. So something like, I don't know, maybe if you have an entire section that is summarizing the like another clinician's report, then that would be a really good place to just undo it and just generate it with that one thing selected. Or you can actually select whatever you want to rewrite, have the additional information selected, and you can turn off things that you've already used for that. And you can give that instruction here. So this is Edit with AI, which will look at whatever's selected and rewrite the selected text. I'm using the word selected a lot, but two different types of selection, the selected notes and the selected text. And I can give an instruction here to say like, rewrite this. Obviously, this is not going to do a very good job because this is purpose report and I'm selecting a physio report, but that will allow you to rewrite with that information selected. Some people, I've seen examples where they set up those prompts and they're kind of like very like super users, I suppose is the right word. And they just leave the prompt as a plain text when they're generating all. And so their template doesn't have it on. And then after the fact, they turn it on and send it with just the report they want selected for that section. So that's a bit of a hot tip as well, that you don't need all your prompts actually set as on. So when you're generating everything, you can kind of do a first pass, just generating the information you actually want to generate on the first pass. And then you can have those prompts already set up in your template for certain things. I've seen that work really well when people know that they've got like that additional information almost always. I think I was helping someone with their, it was like work cover. I can't remember the name of the report right now, but it was like a work cover thing. And they always had like really similar additional information. So they were able to set up those prompts in a way that was like consistent for most of their reports. If it's kind of an outlier thing, you can just add that in when that comes. Cool. Let me jump into Word, but yeah, any more questions, feel free to let me know. So this is my existing report that I use as an example to start setting up this. Obviously, this is not the formatting I want for it to be completed. This one's already got the stuff set up, doesn't it? Let me just check. I've opened up the one that, yes, it does. Okay, so some people's Word templates are already set up beautifully with everything you need for it to be quick and easy for you. So if you click into a table in your report and you've got like some kind of unique table styling and you click on table design and you already have custom table designs, that's great because it's going to be a lot easier for you. You don't need to go through the process of setting them up. If you don't, then you're going to need to do some work here to set this up just the first time, to set up a template, and then it won't be too difficult in the future because I'll show you kind of what you need to do. So I'm actually, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save an existing report that has all my styling I like as a template. So save as template, example, I'm going to call this example template, the template webinar, and it's going to save into templates as a .x file instead of a docx file. And the ultimate goal is we're going to have a blank letterhead template that has our styling saved in the document. For the purpose of showing you how to do all the styling, I'm actually going to change the styling so that you can see the difference between what it looks like now and what it will look like. But let me make this purpley color. So if these are not already set correctly, so if you see when you click on styles pane up here, if you don't have this set as like heading 1, for example, then you'll need to go to heading 1 on your list on the right, and you can click on the little arrow and I can say update to match selection. That's the fastest way to just get that heading style set correctly. And I can do that for heading 2 as well. Obviously, this one's already set to heading 2, so that's great. But if it wasn't, you could also do update to match selection as well. Body text. If your body text is not set correctly, then you also need to change that. The next thing to do is to click Format, Font, and make sure that your formatting for your font is actually the default font you want as well. So if your default font is different from your formatted font, it can create an extra step as well. So this is just a faster way to make sure that the fonts come across. And you can click default, and I'm just going to say this document only and say okay. If all of your fonts are the same, you can base it all on the same thing, but I just do this for a lot of people, so I don't want to muck up other templates. The next thing is, so you can use up to heading 3 that will correlate perfectly with the Everbility heading styles that we have in Everbility. And the next thing to do is actually to set up these custom table styles. So have a quick scroll through your report and see how many table stylings you have. I have seen reports with like 6 or 7 different table stylings. So if you have that many, you're going to have to set up this styling for each type of style table in your document. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to quickly show you just one style. I'm going to click on table design, click on this little down arrow and say new table style. And you basically want to make this little preview box look like your styling. So give it a logical name. I'm just going to call it all tables and assume that the whole document has the same. And it's kind of in this hierarchical behavior. So the first thing to do is change what affects the whole table. So my whole table has a border. So that's the first thing I'm going to change. That's this little button. I'm going to say all borders, turn that on. Make sure your font is still correct. Font, even though I've set that for the default document, that should be correct. If it's not, then you might need to go back and make sure that the defaults are set up correctly. But you can also just change that to the correct font. Font size, if you want, anything else to be different, then check that. Then the next thing is header row. So in this case, if I want to make it look like the table I have here, I would need to change the color of the header row. And you can actually put in a custom text color. So if you have a really particular color for your company, then you can make sure that it matches the color that you have in your reports. And that's how you get that one. And I'm going to make sure that's bold as well. And I'm going to click on first column and I'm going to give that the same color. Oops, I picked a different color. So that's obvious when you do that though, which is good. I'm also going to make that bold. And the next thing, so once that matches, in this case it does, I'm going to click add to template. So that's really important because if you don't add it to the template, then you don't have it in future. So you want to make sure you do that. I'm going to click OK. and it's going to show up as an additional option in these custom table styles. If you click into a table and you notice that first column is not selected and you can't find the right table up here because you want the left to be colored, then just click first column and then you'll be able to see that. So that's the setting up process. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete everything from this document. So I clicked Command A, or it's Control A if you're on a Windows, and I'm gonna delete. So I have already set up my styles and I just want the blank letterhead document. I'm gonna save this as a template. So I've already created a template, so I've just clicked save. Actually, I'll do it visually because I did it on the keyboard. And now I can open up a blank document from this template whenever I need to create my formatting back from Everbility. And basically, I open up the exported Everbility version, I can copy all, and I paste it in. And 90% of the formatting came back as I wanted it to. Oh, that's interesting. That shouldn't have happened. So I'm going to figure out why that happened. Maybe I need to change the style in Everbility back to header 1. That's really not liking this heading. That's okay. I'm going to figure that out. But I might just put this back in quickly and see if that fixes that. Functional capacity, at least for you guys as well, so that it happens to you. Heading 1. Let's export this as a Word document. Open that up. Copy all. Select all, delete, paste. Okay, that worked. So when it's got those underlines in Everbility, it's going to lose its direct style mapping, which is new to me. So that's interesting, but definitely that's good information to know about. So most of it's come back. The next thing to do, you're going to have to click into a table, click table style, and then just choose the table style that's relevant. So it should be a very quick process to get your formatting back for your templates. If it's set up in Everbility well that it maps, then it's like a really quick process. Awesome. Any questions? Anything I can help with before we all jump off? Also reach out to our team. We're super happy to help, even with if you're struggling to set up your styling in Word. We've done it for loads of people, so we're really happy to help get that working. Anything like that, yeah, please, or even setting up your prompts. Happy to support that. So please let our team know. Awesome. All right, if there's no questions, then yeah, everyone have a lovely afternoon.